All right, so we're diving deep into interview prep for a leather goods product development manager role. And you've got some really excellent role catcher resources here. Career guides, interview guides, even a peek into their AI tools. So,
It's a pretty exciting role. It really sits at kind of the intersection of creativity and business savvy, and you need like a deep understanding of the leather goods market.
yeah. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. We've got those resources we just talked about. But before we even get to the tech, let's just understand the role itself. What does a leather goods product development manager actually do?
So think of it as the conductor of an orchestra. They're responsible for bringing a new product to life, from like concept to completion. This involves a lot of things. Coordinating design teams, managing budgets, ensuring quality control, keeping a close eye on market trends. Got to make sure that product is both beautiful and commercially viable.
Okay, so it's not just sketching designs in a quiet studio. Big management component,
Oh.
big strategic planning component.
Absolutely. That's really where those career guides come in handy. They outline the different stages of a career in this field, highlight the skills you need to progress from assistant to coordinator, all the way up to senior developer and manager.
Oh, so there's a clear path for growth. That's really great to know. And speaking of growth, the leather goods industry itself is undergoing some major shifts.
Yeah, one word. Sustainability. Consumers are becoming increasingly conscious of the environmental and social impact of their purchases. This is driving a huge demand for eco-friendly and ethically produced leather goods.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does this impact a product development manager?
Well, imagine you're in that interview and they ask, how do you stay up to date with current trends and market demands? Now, you could mention you're reading industry publications, of course, but what if you also talk about attending key trade shows like Linea Pell or Premier Vision?
Oh, that's a good point.
Shows you're proactive and plugged in. Exactly. Or you could discuss how you analyze consumer behavior on social media. Follow influential fashion bloggers who focus on sustainability, or even research emerging materials like lab-grown leather or innovative plant-based alternatives.
That's impressive. It shows you're not just aware of the trend, but actively seeking ways to incorporate it into your work.
And that brings us to another crucial aspect, showcasing your skills. RoleCatcher emphasizes building a portfolio that highlights projects with a sustainability focus, attending industry events centered on ethical production, even having a strong online presence where you share your knowledge and insights about sustainable design.
So it's about going beyond the traditional resume and actively demonstrating your passion and expertise. Okay, I think we've set this stage nicely. Are you ready to dive into those interview questions?
Let's do it. Remember, most of these questions are designed to assess not only your knowledge, but also your thought process and how you approach complex scenarios.
Okay, first up, how do you approach the product design process? This is your chance to shine a light on your creativity and how you bring ideas to life.
I always think about it as like telling a story. Start with your sources of inspiration. Could be architecture, nature, or even vintage fashion. Then walk them through your process. Sketching, prototyping, 3D modeling, using software like CAD. But you can't forget the collaborative aspect.
But this isn't a solo mission. How do you involve other teams, from design to production, to ensure the product is both functional and aesthetically pleasing?
And be prepared for follow-up questions, like how do you handle conflicting feedback from different stakeholders during the design process? That's where your communication and problem-solving skills come into play.
Okay, moving on to question number 2. How do you ensure product quality and consistency? Here, you got to shift from designer to manager, making sure every item meets the highest standards.
Talk about your experience with testing protocols, inspection procedures, supplier audits, things like that. If you have any knowledge of Six Sigma or ISO certifications, definitely mention them.
And be ready for a question like, tell me about a time you identified a quality issue and how you addressed it. They want to see your problem-solving skills in action.
All right, question 3. How do you manage and prioritize multiple projects simultaneously? Classic test of your organizational and time management skills.
Think about the tools and strategies you use to stay on top of things. Project management software, agile methodologies, even a well-structured to-do list can show you've got a system in place.
They want to see that you can handle pressure, delegate effectively, and keep everyone informed about project progress. Speaking of communication, be prepared for a follow-up question like Stavision. How do you communicate project status and updates to stakeholders?
Oh, that's a great point. Clear and concise communication is essential. Okay, let's talk suppliers. Question number 4. How do you approach supplier relationship management?
So this is about building strong, long-term relationships based on trust and mutual benefit. Highlight your ability to identify reliable suppliers, negotiate favorable terms, and ensure they adhere to ethical and sustainable practices.
And have a real-life example ready. Like, tell me about a time you had to handle a challenging situation with a supplier and how you resolved it. Show them you can navigate those tricky situations.
Now for the million-dollar question. How do you balance creativity with commercial viability? This one goes to the heart of the role.
You could have the most amazing design, but if it's too expensive to produce or doesn't align with market demand, it's not going to be successful. How do you find that sweet spot?
Talk about your understanding of market research, target audience analysis, cost analysis, and your ability to make design compromises without sacrificing the essence of your vision. A good follow-up question they might ask is, can you give me an example of a time you had to make a design compromise to meet budget constraints?
Well, that's a good one. Shows you understand the business realities of product development. Speaking of business realities, let's move on to question number 6. How do you manage a team of designers and developers? Leadership skills are front and center here.
So think about your leadership style. Are you collaborative? Do you empower your team? Do you focus on individual growth? Be authentic. Let your personality shine through.
And be prepared to share specific examples of how you've motivated your team, resolved conflicts, and fostered a positive and productive work environment. They might ask. Describe a time you had to deal with a difficult team member and how you approached the situation.
Okay. Let's shift gears to risk management. Question 7. How do you manage risk in product development?
Got to think ahead. Anticipate problems. Have backup plans. It's crucial in this role. Talk about your approach to risk assessment and mitigation. Do you use any specific tools or methodologies, like PEART or Gantt charts?
A good follow-up question could be, can you describe a time a product launch faced unexpected challenges and how you managed the situation? Show them you can handle the pressure. Think on your feet.
All right, last but certainly not least, question number 8. How do you ensure that products are produced ethically and sustainably? This is a big one. It's becoming increasingly important to consumers.
So you got to go beyond general statements. Get specific. Have you researched alternative tanning methods with lower environmental impact? Explored sourcing from suppliers who prioritize fair labor practices? Do you have ideas for designing products with longevity in mind to reduce waste?
Excellent examples. Shows you're not just following trends, you're actively seeking solutions and pushing the industry forward. They might even ask a thought-provoking question like, what are some of the biggest challenges you see in ensuring ethical and sustainable production? And how do you approach those challenges?
This is your chance to really showcase your knowledge and insights into the complexities of the industry. Remember, it's not just about meeting current standards. It's about pushing boundaries and setting new ones. Think circularity. Think bio-based materials. Think transparency and traceability throughout the supply chain. The possibilities are endless if you're willing to think creatively and challenge the status quo.
Wow, that's inspiring. It perfectly segues into our next segment. We've covered a ton of ground with these questions. But what if you had an AI tool that could help you tailor your answers and really make them stand out? Well, that's where RoleCatcher's AI comes in. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into how this amazing technology can take your interview prep to the next level.
Welcome back. So we've talked about the role, we've tackled those tough interview questions, and now it's time to unlock the power of RoleCatcher's AI.
I'm really excited about this. It's like a secret weapon in your interview prep arsenal.
Exactly. Remember how we discussed tailoring your answers to each specific job? That's where RoleCatcher's AI shines. It starts with the CV Resume Builder, which analyzes job descriptions and highlights any skills or experiences you might be missing.
So you're not just guessing what the hiring manager wants to see, the AI tells you outright. And it doesn't just stop there, right? It goes beyond just identifying gaps.
You're right. It goes a step further and actually suggests ways to incorporate those missing skills into your resume, whether it's highlighting relevant experience you might have overlooked or suggesting additional training or certifications you could pursue. It's like having a personalized career coach guiding you every step of the way.
That's incredible. And this AI-powered tailoring extends to cover letters and application answers too, right? So you're not just submitting generic responses, you're crafting targeted and impactful answers that are specific to each job you apply for.
Precisely. Think about those open-ended application questions that always leave you staring at the screen, wondering how to best answer them. RoleCatcher's AI gives you feedback on your answers, making sure you're hitting the right notes and showcasing your skills effectively.
It's like having a personal editor for your job applications, ensuring they're polished and persuasive. And the AI magic doesn't stop there. What about those increasingly common video interviews? Does RoleCatcher help with those too?
Absolutely. You can record yourself answering common interview questions. And RoleCatcher's AI analyzes your video, providing feedback on your delivery body language and even the content of your answers.
That is so valuable. It's one thing to practice in front of a mirror, but it's another level entirely to have an AI analyze your performance and identify areas for improvement, like maybe you're using too many hand gestures or your tone is a bit too flat. This feedback can be incredibly helpful in refining your presentation skills.
Exactly. It's all about presenting yourself with confidence and clarity, and RoleCatcher's AI gives you the tools to do just that. Now, before we wrap up, let's circle back to the bigger picture we talked about earlier. Remember, the leather goods industry is evolving rapidly. This role requires more than just design skills. It demands a blend of creativity management acumen and a keen eye on trends, particularly in sustainability.
You're absolutely right. And while we've covered a lot of ground today, the learning doesn't stop here. RoleCatcher offers a wealth of resources, from career guides to skill guides to industry reports, that can help you deepen your knowledge and stay ahead of the curve.
It's about becoming a lifelong learner, embracing new technologies, and constantly seeking ways to innovate and improve. And remember that provocative thought we left you with earlier. How can you take the ethical and sustainable production aspect even further? What innovative ideas can you bring to the table to minimize environmental impact, promote fair labor practices, and create a more responsible leather goods industry?
That's an excellent question to ponder. It's not just about meeting current standards, it's about pushing the boundaries and setting new ones. Think circularity, think bio-based materials, think transparency and traceability throughout the supply chain. The possibilities are endless if you're willing to think creatively and challenge the status quo.
Beautifully said. Remember, preparation is key. And with resources like RoleCatcher and some strategic thinking, you'll be ready to rock that interview.
Absolutely. You've got the knowledge, you've got the tools. Now go out there and make that leather goods industry a more beautiful and sustainable place.
Best of luck. It's not just about sounding impressive in the interview, though, is it? This whole idea of ethical and sustainable production. It's what consumers actually care about these days.
Oh, it's huge. It's a major shift in consumer consciousness. People want to know the story behind their purchases, like where did the materials come from, how was it made, what's the impact on the planet and the people involved in making this.
Yeah, it's not a niche market anymore. It's becoming like the expectation.
Exactly. And companies are really taking note. They need product development managers who get this, who can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
So let's say you're in that interview and they ask you about your commitment to sustainability. How do you go beyond just the buzzwords and demonstrate your understanding? It's all about concrete examples. Maybe you've researched some new tanning methods, ones that use less water or fewer harsh chemicals, or you've looked into sourcing leather from suppliers who prioritize animal welfare and fair labor practices.
Yeah, or even something like designing for durability, so the product lasts longer and doesn't end up in a landfill after a season.
Those are all great examples. It shows you're thinking about the entire life cycle of the product, from sourcing to end of life.
Right, and it brings us back to that proactive mindset. RoleCatcher emphasizes that. Don't just wait for someone to hand you a sustainable solution. Go out there and find it.
Yeah, become an expert in innovative materials, like ones made from pineapple fibers or mushroom leather. Stay up to date on the latest certifications and standards, too, like the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, or the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB.
I feel like those acronyms might sound a little bit intimidating, but essentially they're frameworks that help companies measure and report their sustainability performance.
And having that knowledge shows you're serious about making a difference. It demonstrates that you're not just following trends. You're leading the charge towards a more responsible future for the leather goods industry.
So as we wrap up here, what does this all mean for you as you prep for this interview? The leather goods industry is evolving. This role requires a blend of creativity management skills and a keen eye on trends, especially around sustainability.
But you got this. With resources like RoleCatcher, the dedication to learn, and a little bit of that proactive spirit, you'll not only ace that interview, but you'll have a real impact on shaping a more sustainable and ethical future for the industry.
Beautifully said. Remember, it's not just about landing the job, it's about making a difference. Best of luck with your interview, and keep pushing those boundaries